The Philadephia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. They defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 in Super Bowl 59. I share my thoughts from the game here in just a second. I also talk about Aaron Rodgers is going to be a free agent, whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers should be interested. That's next on the Bleav in Steelers show. Today's episode of Bleav in Steelers is brought to you by betonline.ag. NFL season is come and gone, but there's going to be a lot in the offseason that you can gamble on. There's going to be a lot of NBA, NHL, college basketball. Get in on the action today over at betonline.ag. BetOnline, the game starts here. The Eagles, big winners. I mean, this game was over at halftime. And to me, what really stuck out was Philadelphia's ability to get to Patrick Mahomes consistently with 4. Mahomes sacked 6 times tonight, and they talk about it being a line of scrimmage game at the point of attack. I don't know if Philly even blitzed all that much tonight, and they got after Patrick Mahomes, dominated the Chiefs' offensive line to where Kansas City couldn't do anything up front to give time that Patrick Mahomes needed for plays to develop. Sacked 6 times. They lost 31 yards at that. And you look at time of possession. The Eagles had the ball for nearly 37 minutes in this one. Chiefs had it for a little bit more than 23. Chiefs couldn't really run the ball that well, only 49 yards rushing, 226 yards passing net for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, 21 of 32, 257 yards, 3 touchdown passes, had 2 interceptions. But Jalen Hurts, I thought, was the key difference in this game because I thought that Kansas City did a pretty good job of bottling up Saquon Barkley, and it was clear that was the game plan to stop Saquon. Saquon had the 25 rushes for 57 yards, but Jalen Hurts, 11 carries, 72 yards, had a touchdown, 17 of 22 for Hurts, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I really thought the story of the game, though, was at the line of scrimmage, at the point of attack, and I thought Kansas City's offensive line just got absolutely dominated by the Eagles. And to me, that was really the tale of the tape in the story of this game. Josh Sweat, 2.5 sacks for the Eagles. He had 6 tackles overall, 2 TFLs. Milton Williams as well had 2 sacks, also had 2 TFLs. He was everywhere as well, had a pass deflection as well. To me, that was the story of the game, was Philly's defense. And to me, Mahomes didn't have the time he needed to be able to do anything. And it was too little too late because Philly went into halftime where it was down 24-0. Tom Brady's in the booth. He came down from the 28-3 deficit in the Super Bowl against the Falcons all those years ago. That wasn't going to happen tonight with the Chiefs. You knew going into halftime where it was like Philly, the only way the Chiefs would have gotten back into the game is a mistake that Philly would have made in terms of momentum, in terms of Kansas City's offense. They finally get on the board in the second half. I was questioning whether they'd even score tonight. I've only seen the Chiefs play like this one other time in Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's tenure there, which has been wildly successful, going for a 3rd straight Super Bowl tonight, and they come up well short. But there was a game in October of 2021 when the Chiefs went to Nashville to play the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans dominated that game 27-3. And it reminded me of that, where it was just like Kansas City couldn't do anything to try to get back into the game tonight. And credit Philly's defense. I mean, Cooper DeJean with the pick 6, a rookie out of Iowa, Quinyon Mitchell, mentioned Jalen Carter, a lot of good young talent for Philadelphia defensively. And then offensively, it's pick your poison. Clearly the Chiefs wanted to shut down Saquon Barkley in today's game. And so the onus then goes on Jalen Hurts, where he finds A.J. Brown, he finds Devontae Smith, and they said Jalen Hurts is going to be the one that beats us in this game if we go down. And that's exactly what he did. You credit Jalen Hurts and what's been just a dominant Philadelphia Eagles team, an Eagles team that dominates the line of scrimmage in short yardage situations and the conversions. And then it's, if you're a Steelers fan watching this show, it's like, to have playoff success, something I've really taken from this year's playoffs is the most successful teams are aggressive and assertive, and they aren't afraid to take risks when they need to. Now, you could say that the Steelers should do that more, But when the Steelers ranked 31st in the regular season in fourth down conversion rate, you've got to get that above 50% on fourth and short, third and short situations, red zone situations. That to me is when I was watching the conference championships and I was watching the Super Bowl tonight. If you want to be the best of the best, you have to know when to take risks and to take calculated risks. And the Eagles did it even on the first drive of the game. Now, I thought that this could end up costing them. They go for it on fourth down. Jalen Hurts drops one in the bucket for A.J. Brown, and they say Brown pushed off on the Chiefs cornerback McDuffie, who's an all-pro in his own right. But they went for it, and they converted, if not for that offensive pass interference, which was pretty tic-tac. But Brown, 3 catches, 43 yards, a touchdown on 5 targets. Devontae Smith, 4 receptions, 69 yards, had that touchdown as well, as long as 46 yards through the air. So Philly just dominated in this one. And honestly, I think the deficit could have been even more, but it was like, hey, let's hang on to the lead and not do anything too stupid and not anything overly aggressive, because at one point, Philly was up 5 possessions in tonight's game. And it's a pick your poison. We saw Philly play the Steelers this year, and it wasn't particularly close. A.J. Brown's dominated the Steelers as well. So tonight, Kansas City said, hey, Jalen Hurts is going to be the one that has to make throws down the stretch, and he's capable of doing that. He had great protection up front, and it's just a great overall team win for the Eagles. But to me, it was really the defense, because they could get home against Kansas City without needing to blitz. And to be able to have 7 guys in coverage, I just think is huge. I mean, that defense was just everywhere for the Eagles tonight. Chiefs overall, only 49 yards rushing. Again, Mahomes 21 of 32, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 6 sacks. The net passing yards, 226 net passing yards. Xavier Worthy, I thought, actually played really well. I know a lot of this was in mop-up time, but 8 catches, 157 yards. He had 2 scores. So if he's able to put it together in year 2, remember Rashee Rice is coming back, and then Kansas City's got to try to do something up front to help fortify that offensive line to give Mahomes more time, because Mahomes with time is scarier than any combination. And that receiving core should just get better and better, considering Rice is going to be coming back from an injury. Worthy will be entering his second year. 2 good young receivers for Patrick Mahomes and company and the Kansas City Chiefs. They're trying to do something that had never been done in a three-peat, and you could say their luck ran out. And Philadelphia was just a much better team. Credit Nick Sirianni, too. I know there were rumors of, is he going to be able to make it through the year? And I also credit the Eagles for not abandoning Saquon Barkley at 25 carries. Again, only 57 yards for Saquon, so only 2.3 yards per carry, but they didn't abandon him. And then they got him going into the passing game a little bit too. He had 6 receptions for 40 yards out of the backfield as well. So I thought that was big too, to not abandon Saquon, even though he wasn't effective, to be able to control the clock. And clearly that was part of the game plan and what was just a pure domination of the Kansas City Chiefs tonight by Philly. I mean, this game really, to me, at halftime, I'm like, barring a miracle, which we've seen before in the Super Bowl, but barring a miracle, Philly's got this game well in hand. Want to know what your favorite Super Bowl commercial was? Mine was the Seal, the singer as a seal. I Bleav it was a Mountain Dew commercial. If you're watching this live, let me know what you thought of the commercials. That to me was like the highlight of the game, because this game was so far out of hand. Again, Philly just dominated tonight, and is a bad matchup for Kansas City. Bad matchup for Kansas City, to where up front, Mahomes had to do way too much in the passing game. If you can't run the ball to help neutralize that defensive line, they can pin their ears back and they get up a score early, and they just never look back. The Eagles just never looked back in this game. I'm going to go through a few viewer comments, as always, during the What Yins Think. Joey Jr. saying, defense still wins championships. I thought that was the storyline in tonight's game, was Philly's defense. Let's see. Victor saying, Kenny Pickett gets a Super Bowl ring. Not only that, he played the last snap of the Super Bowl. Wow, yeah, Kenny Pickett had a pass attempt in tonight's game, and he gets a Super Bowl ring. 0-1, Kenny Pickett late in the game, taking Jalen Hurts out of the game just to make sure that he can stay healthy for next year. And at that point in the game, too, I didn't want to see any player get injured for either team for next season, because I think both of these teams are going to be playoff teams again. And now I'll say this, too. I think Philly's in a really good position to run it back. I think Philly's in a very good position to run it back next year, just with all the young talent that they have, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I was blown away how they just totally shut down the Chiefs offense tonight. Terry saying, take the 2 touchdowns back from the interceptions, and the Eagles are 26 points. No doubt. No doubt. But to me, it was Philly's defense that really stuck out tonight. Terry, thanks for checking in, but it's complimentary football. It's the name of the game. Jeremiah saying, why are you talking about the Steelers? They didn't play Chiefs. I'll get to that. I will get to why I'm talking about the Steelers. This is the Bleav in Steelers show, and this is going to be on the Bleav in Steelers podcast. You can get that on Apple, on Spotify. And the reason why I'm talking about that, we found out today that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be back in a Jets uniform next season. Now, will he retire? Could he go to another team? Remember, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields are not under contract, so there's going to be the rumblings. Could the Steelers bring in Aaron Rodgers? There is mutual respect between Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. When they've played, they have great respect for one another. Here's why I come down on this. If it didn't work for Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets, where he's got Devontae Adams, he's got Garrett Wilson, he's got Breece Hall. I know the Jets don't have a good offensive line, a lot like Pittsburgh. What's going to happen when he comes to Pittsburgh and he's playing in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson? What's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers if he can't get it done in the AFC East, where, let's see who the quarterbacks he's got. Josh Allen. He's got Drake May. And then what's the other teams? Miami, Tua Tagovailoa. So if he can't get it done in that division, and he has, I'd argue, better weapons in New York than he would if he were to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is not something you want to do if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Aaron Rodgers' next team or retirement's going to be a big offseason storyline. Right now, if you look at betonline.ag's odds right now, Rodgers is favored to retire, which could very well happen. But his next team, the Raiders are the favorite. The Steelers are in the running. The 49ers are a possibility. The Saints, the Seahawks, the Browns, the Giants. I doubt Tennessee would want him. I think Tennessee's going to go with Cam Ward with the first pick in the draft. Colts, Cowboys, Rams, Dolphins, Jags, Panthers, Cardinals also in the running for Aaron Rodgers potentially. But how much money is he going to want at his advanced age now that Aaron Rodgers is into, say he's in his 40s? I'll look this up right now here on the fly. He's 41 years old. But the Jets are not going to bring him back with Aaron Glenn as their new head coach in New York. There's naturally, hey, Pittsburgh only has Skylar Thompson under contract. Is this something that they want to explore? I would say definitively no. Definitively no. I would not do this if I were Pittsburgh. So that's why we're talking about it here on the Bleav in Steelers show, even though we're talking about Super Bowl as well. And just really lessons that what does Pittsburgh need to do to get back into supremacy, to win a playoff game, and they go on to do a Super Bowl run. Really, you're going to need better quarterback play. I keep going back to this, and whether you want to see Mike Tomlin go on or not, and whether it's time for him to go in Pittsburgh or not, he signed a big contract extension last offseason. You rehauled the offensive staff last offseason with the new offensive coordinator and Arthur Smith, got a new quarterbacks coach. But the thing that stuck out to me watching throughout the playoffs was how aggressive teams are on 4th and short scenarios around midfield, where traditionally the old school notion would be, let's punt the ball or let's kick a field goal here. You can't settle for that anymore. And you have to have the ability to convert on 3rd and short and 4th and short, and to convert in the red zone. And settling for 3 is not going to win you championships anymore. And the difference of that is, it used to be the turnover margin, which was the greatest indicator of whether a team would win or lose the football game. Now that is dictated by quarterback play, and that is dictated by good quarterbacks forcing opposing defenses to play an honest 11 on 11, because that helps with your ability to convert on key conversions throughout the course of a game. Look at the very first drive Philadelphia went for it, and they didn't convert. They got penalized. Questionable penalty against A.J. Brown. But throughout the course of this season, it's not just the tush push with Philly. Go back to the last weekend, 2 weeks ago in the NFC Championship game. Washington, how did the Washington Commanders with the rookie quarterback get to the NFC Championship game? It was their ability to convert on fourth downs. They were number one in the regular season, and they normalized that to where on a 4th and 2nd or a 4th and 3rd, maybe even a 4th and 4, they're not sweating. And you've been sweating if you've been a Steelers fan, because you're second to last in the NFL this past offseason in 4th down conversions. Because perhaps it's the play calling, perhaps it's the personnel, but they don't have what it takes of these other elite level teams. And to me, that goes back to the quarterback play. Goes back to the quarterback play. Whether you want Tomlin or not, you've got to find out who the guy is post Roethlisberger. So what the Steelers need to do this offseason, you can't walk away empty-handed with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. You bring back one of them, preferably Justin Fields. You give him an opportunity in 2025. Perhaps you find a free agent quarterback, or you get a quarterback mid to late rounds, because at 21, the guy that you really want is not going to be there. You try to draft and develop a quarterback, and then you start to stockpile your assets for the 2026 offseason. Probably try to make that approach through the draft, to where you either have to trade up, or maybe you bottom out. Maybe you finally have a losing season. Maybe you end up going in the bottom of the league and you go 5-12 or 3-14 or whatever it may be. And that might sound crazy, but to be able to get to this point that we saw tonight, you've got to have the stud quarterback to be able to do that. Because when the Steelers played the Chiefs on Christmas Day, they got smoked. They lost 5 straight games down the stretch of the season, including that playoff game against Baltimore. And yes, those are very formidable teams, but we're talking about teams that didn't even end up going to win the championship. I know they played the Eagles during that stretch, but teams that didn't even end up going to the Super Bowl, that were good playoff teams. But you're several levels away, if you're Pittsburgh, from being able to compete for what happened on the field tonight, for teams that are able to win in multitude of ways. And that's what the Eagles did, because Saquon, again, on the ground, was largely ineffective tonight. That was Kansas City's game plan, clearly. They said Saquon's not going to be the guy that beat us. And guess what? Jalen Hurts is able to. If you want to stack the box to stop Saquon, on the outside, we've got 2 beasts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson also as well, getting the ball down to the 1-yard line on the opening drive of the second drive of the game, Second drive of the game, early on in the first half. Jalen Hurts' ability to do that. The ability to extend plays, the ability to run the ball, the ability to tush push, things that modern teams do, that is honestly higher in the equation and higher in the pecking order of what dictates success in the NFL. And that is having an elite level quarterback play. That's more important at this point than turnover margin. It's not the same NFL it was 20 years ago. Turnover margin used to be the name of the game, and it's still a very important indicator. Do not get me wrong. It's still a very, very important indicator of wins and losses at any level of football, particularly in the NFL. And the Chiefs turned it over 3 times tonight. The Eagles only turned it over once. It's a big part of tonight's game. But it's the quarterback play that is the missing element for the Steelers. So I'd bring back Fields. I'd try to draft and develop a guy in the mid rounds. And then I'd take another swing at it next offseason. And you're going to need to get a higher pick in one way or another, whether you bottom out or whether you trade up and you stockpile your assets. That's what Pittsburgh's got to do. Because I saw this tonight. I mean, just Mahomes, Hurts. There are so many other quarterbacks. Just look at the division. Burrow and Jackson. Josh Allen in Buffalo. There's a lot of really good quarterback play. And Pittsburgh doesn't have that guy right now. Maybe Justin Fields can develop, But do you really think he'd be able to develop to the point where he could get you to where Philadelphia was tonight? Or the Chiefs with the success that they've had during Patrick Mahomes' run there? And that's not to shortchange the Chiefs, even though they got blown out tonight. I thought they got blown out even more so than the score indicated. Let's get to a few other comments, and then I'll go ahead and wrap here. Terry saying Kenny traded head coaches and won a Super Bowl. Yeah, but he's the backup, so I don't take too much that. Good for Kenny Pickett, too. Autumn saying they need to get the quarterback of the future when talking about Pittsburgh. Jeremiah asking a good question. Do you like Howard out of Ohio State? Howard is an intriguing prospect. I also like Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. And what always happens with the quarterbacks, let me put it this way. This quarterback class is not the same as this past year in 2024. A lot more talent rich in 2024. And so what happens when the quarterbacks aren't as good, you have teams that end up overdrafting quarterbacks, i.e. what the Pittsburgh Steelers did when they drafted Kenny Pickett at number 20. Clearly, they tried to find who that quarterback of the future was. I don't fault Pittsburgh for making that pick. Kevin Colbert thought it was going to be his parting gift to Pittsburgh to find Big Ben's heir. Didn't work. But that doesn't mean not try it again. This quarterback class, when the Steelers pick at 21, there's not going to be a guy there that's a worthwhile pick at 21 for Pittsburgh. So that's why I'm saying next offseason, you load up your assets in hope of making a trade or having a good enough draft pick to go get the guy that you want at the quarterback position. I joke around Arch Manning. I'm a men's medium. If any of you want to send me a Steelers Arch Manning jersey, I know that's crazy to say. Jeremiah also saying, I think the Steelers will get Howard in the draft and then draft Egbuka out of Ohio State, the Ohio State receiver. Certainly, the Steelers also need a lot of help at the receiver position. I look at Philly. They've got good receivers. Kansas City, even despite its loss, the receivers aren't really the issue. And I mean, if D-Hop is back, again, year 2 of Xavier Worthy, he's just going to get better and better. Rashee Rice, who at the start of the season was probably your receiver 1 for Kansas City, he'll be back from an injury too. So I'm looking at that and it's like, man, outside of George Pickens, Pittsburgh needs a receiver, no doubt. I've been seeing them attached to Egbuka out of Ohio State. I Bleav I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but that's actually a great place to wrap here is with the Super Bowl wrapping up. I'll be with you here on Bleav in Steelers as we get into the offseason, as changes are made, as we find out about free agency, and as we get ready for April's NFL draft as well, where we'll have full breakdowns of different players, rankings by position group, and what Pittsburgh's going to do to try to upgrade its roster and to try to get back to the playoffs. So we'll see. But Eagles dominate tonight in Super Bowl 59, the final, 40-22 over the Kansas City Chiefs. My name is Mark Bergin. I want to thank the listeners and viewers. It is the 6th season I've hosted this show, Bleav in Steelers. It's been an absolute blast. It's always sad when a season wraps up, but there's still a ton in the off season. There's still going to be a lot of great guests here on this show. And sometimes what happens off the field is just as exciting as what happens on the field. So we'll see how all of this breaks down this off season as Pittsburgh tries to regroup in 2025. My name is Mark Bergin. Thanks so much for watching. Hope all of you have a great rest of your weekends. Apple and Spotify, go leave a 5-star review. If you haven't already on the Mark Bergin YouTube page, hit that subscribe button. Hope all of you have great rest of your nights, great rest of your weekends. Eagles, winners of Super Bowl 59. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. So long, everybody.